We will move to Senator Paul and then go back to her.
Okay.
The Office of Civil Rights sent a letter to Connecticut saying that boys can't compete with girls in sports, or
So what's
they should
happening
be
here?
forced to allow boys to compete in girls' sports. If you're confirmed, will you enforce that Office of Civil Rights opinion?
Hello, Senator. Thank you for the question. I understand that there are a lot of concerns about that. If confirmed, it's my responsibility and my privilege to make sure that we're following our civil rights of all students. And that includes activities that they may engage in high school or in athletics.
What do you think in general about boys running in girls' track meets like they've been doing in Connecticut?
I think that it's critically important that education systems and educators respect the rights of all students, including students who are transgender, and that they are afforded the opportunities that every other student has to participate in extracurricular activity.
Does it bother you that like the top 20% of boys running in track meets beat all of the girls in the state, and that it, would be, completely destroy girls' athletics? The girls are being pushed out. They don't make the finals in the state meet. They don't get college scholarships, that it's really detrimental to girls' sports. Do you worry about having boys running girls' track meets?
I recognize and appreciate the concerns and the frustrations that are expressed. I've, as Commissioner of Education, have had conversations with families who have felt the way you just described it, and families of students who are transgender. So I understand that this is a challenge. I look forward to working with you and others to.
Do you think it's fair to have boys running in the girls' track meet?
I think it's appropriate for. I think it's the legal responsibility of schools to provide opportunities for students to participate in activities, and this includes students who are transgender.
So you don't have a problem then with boys running in the girls' track meet, swimming meets, name it. You're okay then with boys competing with girls?
Respectfully, Senator, I think I answered the question. I believe schools should offer the opportunity for students to engage in extracurricular activities, even if they're transgender. I think that's their right.
All right. Well, a lot of us think that that's bizarre, not very fair. I come from a family that has a lot of girls who have competed in college athletics, have been state champions, and frankly, some boy that's 6'2" competing against my 5'4" niece doesn't sound very fair. I think most people in the country think it's bizarre, that it's just completely bizarre and unfair that people, and you're going to run the Department of Education, you've got no problem with it. That concerns me. And I think this kind of thing is going to lead to really just the vast majority of America just wondering, who are these people that think it's okay? From what planet are you from? I mean, to think it's okay that boys would compete with girls in a track meet, that somehow would be fair. I wonder where feminists are on this. I wonder where the people who supported women's sports are on this. I mean, we all going to be okay with hulking 6'4" guys, wrestling against girls, it just makes no sense whatsoever. And so I think the fact that you seem to be afraid to answer the question, or you basically do answer the question by saying it's okay without saying it's okay, really is a statement to a real problem we have, and a disconnect between what middle America and what most Americans actually believe. I even think most Democrats don't believe girls should run in the boys' track meet. Boys should run in the girls' track meet. So I'm disappointed in the answer, and I just can't imagine that we're going to have a policy like that nationally.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Senator Murphy, you are next.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Again, congratulations, Dr. Cardona. Thank you for your willingness to serve. Just a word on the topic that Senator Burr raised about assessments. Listen, I'm a believer in assessments. I think it's really hard to figure out how to target resources if you don't know how your kids are performing. Admittedly, much tougher to do assessments right now, and there's probably a worthwhile conversation about how you tie assessments to accountability measures. But on a bipartisan basis, we've approved hundreds of billions of dollars to send to states and municipalities. We want to make sure that money is spent well, and having a sense of what kids are succeeding and what kids aren't is just, I think, a proper exercise of responsible taxpayer dollar management. And so I just add that to the conversation. Dr. Cardona, I want to talk about sort of two issues unique to Meriden, Connecticut that I think are great to highlight for the country. One is the work that you've done there to reduce suspensions and expulsions, and the next is the work that Meriden has done to promote a truly diverse community, racially diverse and economically diverse, and to talk about the benefit that is provided to students by going to school in a diverse environment. So first, I'm a believer that the federal government should move more quickly to try to reduce the school-to-prison pipeline, that we should be encouraging states to use less exclusionary discipline, meaning kicking kids out of school as a means to try to make schools safer. What have you done you led this effort in Meriden. What did you do to reduce the use of suspensions and expulsions in a way that, frankly, ended up making your schools safer places?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, you know, it's hard to learn if you're being excluded from the learning environment. So efforts to reduce exclusionary practices were critical to our work in Meriden and at the state level. And to do this, you have to really engage students as partners in the process. You know, engaging student voice and giving students an opportunity to communicate their experience and how their learning is best and what struggles they're having in their learning environment is critically important. You mentioned restorative practices. You know, making sure that when issues arise in our schools, that we're looking at it as a learning opportunity for our students and trying to bring a stronger sense of community as a result. So restorative practices was something that we did in Meriden, but also monitoring. I know you talked about accountability and monitoring. You know, if we're not going to improve it if we're not monitoring it, if we're not looking at our data disaggregated by race, by socioeconomic status, by free or reduced lunch, by students with disabilities. We have to be open and honest about what we're doing and what the results are, and are they different for different students? And then we have to be honest about building capacity for our educators, for our schools, and for our systems to make sure that we're addressing it intentionally.
One of the things that you will be immediately presented with is a executive order around school discipline policies that included a lot of incentives for data collection, and I hope you'll take a hard look at re-implementing all or part of that Obama-era executive order, in part because it does get to this question of making sure that we're watching what happens. What we know is that it tends to be students of color and students of disability that end up getting excluded from school more so than their white or non-disabled peers. Lastly, I just wanted to ask you to talk about the benefit of Meriden's diverse student community. I have legislation that would set up a federal grant to support voluntary school integration programs, racial integration programs, and economic integration programs. And I've always been struck in visiting Meriden how the kids themselves are so conscious of the benefit they get from going to middle schools and high schools where they have economic and racial diversity. And in fact, I've talked to lots of kids who moved from less diverse communities, either all white communities or communities with almost exclusively students of color, and they themselves just have their eyes open. So why is that important to Meriden's success?
Thank you, Senator. So I'm a big believer in not only curriculum providing a window into other cultures or a mirror into your own culture where you can see yourself, but I also believe the environment, having a diverse environment is a better environment. Diverse perspectives, diverse backgrounds. There's a level of celebration of differences, which if we can get our students to graduate school with a celebration of differences, they're going to be much more successful in the global economy that we're in. So it's definitely a benefit, and it's something that in my home community I've benefited from, and my children do as well.
Well, I'll look forward to working with you on ways that we can allow the federal government to be a facilitator of those conversations. These are ultimately decisions that get made at the local level about how to approach this question of desegregation and integration, but it's a conversation that the federal government can play a more helpful role, and look forward to working with you on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.